Hi team, Richard Greer here, CP coach. We're here for another CP Media Team podcast, and great to have Matt Stewart alongside me. Hopefully he's there. Matt, how are you getting on?
Good. How are you, Rich?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Fantastic to be back on the podcast. It's been a couple of weeks, and we've got a big show tonight, haven't we?
Yeah, I guess they got called off because of the rain, right? Got rained out. Had to go inside.
Yeah, it's a bit damp. You don't want to. Yeah, it's a bit like cricket, isn't it? Is that right? No, maybe it's more than that. Yeah, no, it's good. But we have got a bit of a winter. We have got a bit of
on for 5 days, Rich.
Yeah, potentially. We've got a bit of a wintry show. We're going to talk a bit of snow, and then we're hopefully going to warm up towards the end, talking to an Australian-based Team CP athlete. So tonight's show is proudly brought to you by True Fleece Merino. So they're going to help us stay warm and look good while out in the mountains during winter. And obviously, Team CP, your endurance coaching specialists. Have you got any of that True Fleece Merino yet, Matt?
I happen to be wearing one this evening, and very comfortable, very warm, very stylish, of course. Yeah. And your one piece of kit you take everywhere when you leave the house, I think.
Good job, and looking good too, as you said. No, that's great. So, in terms of what have you been up to lately, Matt? What's been happening in winter?
Well, I took part of the Team CP Tour de France over July. That was good. Good incentive to get out on the bike when it was a bit rainy. So I managed to tick over 1,060 Ks for the month. So I'm pretty happy with that. Started with a pretty big weekend and finished with a big weekend, but then it was just a matter of keeping it steady through the rest of the month. So that was good. Yeah, climbed plenty of meters, did a few Richard Greer flat sessions just to get the Ks up, but also mixed up with a bit of Zwift and those sorts of things too, just to keep the consistency going.
Yeah,
how did you get on?
Yeah, not bad. So I do my 3 group Zwift sessions a week. So that's a good, that's my key way to get plenty of Ks. And we actually had Jordan Oppett from TV1 News join us for a session as well, which is a bit of fun. It was quite funny actually in here where I normally do it and usually sort of by yourself giving it heaps. But I had a great big lineup of people. The family come out to watch. It's like, oh God, what the heck's going on here? It's a bit weird. A big camera.
You really would have had to put a proper sprint on, just not a phantom sprint, a virtual sprint.
No, that's right. Actually looked like I was trying for a change. That's right. So, yeah, pretty cool with our Tour de France challenge. It was part of that. And Scott Chamberlain ended up with 1,500 Ks for the month, which is pretty impressive. And Matt Stewart, who came up with the idea in the first place, absolutely nailed it with 1,200 Ks from basically not riding his bike for a good 6 months. So that's some fantastic results. But it was really cool to see the level of everybody to challenging themselves to whatever they could fit in and seeing if they could achieve that.
Yeah. But again, it just kind of gave you that kind of, just a bit of enthusiasm and something to kind of get you on your bike, didn't it, really? Whether it was inside or outside or nice day or, again, if the day's a little bit crappy, those are the days that when we're out in the rain and the wind and the cold, it kind of really... You ask yourself, why am I doing this? And you kind of just got to have that goal that you're kind of working towards, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. That end goal, but then also that those little challenges sort of help, especially when I'm trying to beat you, Matt, etc. That does make a difference to drive you out the door.
That's right. But it's also kind of that opportunity to go out and try some gear you've got too, isn't it? Like, have I ridden in the rain or in the wind or in the cold, or do my hands get cold or do my feet get cold, or those sorts of things. So when race day comes around, and the weather is a bit crappy, you kind of go, oh, yep, this is what I need to wear, and this is how I feel comfortable. So it's good simulation training.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So we've got a few other key things going on. We've got our spring get-together Sunday, the 28th of August. Write it down, bring the family along, Tap Domain. We've got a coffee cart coming along to join us afterwards. So join us for a run or a ride, bring the kids along on their bikes, and there'll be a bit of an option for them to do a couple of laps on the gravel road as well, and followed by coffee and cake to finish off. So that's Sunday, the 28th of August. And also our Thursday run group is starting off up with our spring edition. Starts next Thursday, the 11th. So it's free for all Team CP coached athletes. So it's a new initiative to sort of bring our team together for those local-based athletes, but also if you're passing through Christchurch on a Thursday, definitely feel free to join us. So a couple of cool things going on as we come into spring and start to get enthusiastic about getting outdoors a bit more as well.
Almost felt like spring today, didn't it? Sun was out. It was beautiful.
Yep. Definitely. Oh, and the other thing as well, actually, I'm wearing our flash new hoodies, I have to say. So that's pretty cool. But also, nice woolly hoodie that I've got for you there, Matt. But also, just arrived today. I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is a brand new True Fleece CP squad designed by Sandra t-shirt going on as well. So look pretty fancy, pretty stylish here.
Yeah, no, certainly the CP squad have been getting out and giving it heaps. Two down, one to go.
Yep,
could be some more snow this weekend, eh?
Yes, which we'll talk about soon. But let's rock on with the show, shall we? We've got Hamish Fleming, who's waiting in the wings. He's a pretty awesome multisport athlete in his own right, but and we'll have a bit of a chat about that. But the key thing we really want to talk to him about is this fantastic mission that he went on late last year, November last year, climbed all of New Zealand's 3,000 metre plus peaks in 31 days with climbing partner Alastair McDowell, which is pretty amazing. So something that normally takes most people, obviously it's to have the skills to be able to actually get out and do these things. Normally takes people a lifetime to get all those done, but they were the first to achieve it in one single push, and they did it in 31 days, which is absolutely incredible. So we're going to have a chat to Hamish. We're also going to profile our Australian-based CP Athlete Corinne Dolan, who on the weekend completed the Noosa 100k Enduro mountain bike event in the weekend, and she went pretty well from what she reports. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about what that's about and how her training is going and where she's off to. But I think that sounds like a pretty good thing for us to shoot for next year, Matt.
Yeah, possibly. Never say never. No, as long as it's nice and warm, flat. I'm sure it'll be flat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think she said there was 3,000 vertical meters of downhill anyway. So,
wicked. Yeah. That's what it's all about. Another thing too, people that are watching tonight, if you got comments when you listen to these two guests we've got on, pop a comment in, and we can bring those comments up and hopefully get some answers to your questions. But must be just about time to bring Hamish in, eh?
Yeah, let's push the buttons and bring him in.
Hamish, how are we?
Good, thanks. Nice to be on the show. Thanks, Matt. Yeah.
Good stuff. How are you getting on at the moment, Hamish? What sort of missions and things have you been up to lately?
I'm pretty lucky to live in Queenstown, so easy access to the mountains, easy access to the snow, plenty of skiing and winter climbing and things going on at the moment. And nice. I was actually up Coronet Peak this morning doing a few laps on the skis, just skinning up and skiing down. So definitely good place to live, Queenstown. It's awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. That's awesome. Hey, I just want to say congratulations on that fantastic mountaineering achievement that you guys achieved last year. Pretty awesome. Give us a bit of a background in terms of how it come about, how you got involved, what sort of planning was involved in actually getting started with that, because it's not something that you just kind of turn up and do.
No.
Logistics, I'd imagine.
Yeah. No, it was a pretty big undertaking, and I guess it all began with a friend of Alice's, actually, a lady named Penny Webster. She's been writing a book about the 3,000 meter peaks, and she approached Alistair at a club meet, and she sort of suggested the idea of, hey, I'm writing this book about people climbing these peaks over a lifetime. People have done them there is a couple of people who did them in a single winter season. And so she was like, well, the next sort of thing would be to see someone do it in a continuous non-stop style, with sort of in a sporty style, I guess you'd say, where maybe people with an athletic background could go and try and do this in a fast, continuous way. So that was where the idea was spawned. And a lot of people would have heard of Uli Steck, who's a famous alpinist, and he has done these sort of enchainment missions before in Europe. And I had actually just watched one of his films about this when I got a call from Alistair saying, hey man, I'm thinking about this idea. Are you keen? Would you be interested? And I was super psyched, really, really keen for this mission. It sounded right up my alley. So yeah, it's cool.
How good. So what's your climbing background? Had you climbed Mount Cook before? What did you done sort of, and how did you get the call?
Yeah. So I mean, that's part of the cool thing for me is that for those who don't know Alastair McDowell, he's like an amazing alpinist. He's been climbing for a long time. He's got a great record of climbing overseas, done some amazing things in New Zealand, South America, Patagonia, Chamonix, all these places. And he's a member of the New Zealand Alpine team, and he's been under that mentorship program. So needless to say, I felt very, very lucky to be on his radar as a climbing partner. And yeah, and lucky to be able to sort of go through a bit of a learning journey with him on the expedition. My background in climbing was fairly limited, you know, like I hadn't climbed any of the peaks in the Mount Cook Aoraki region. I'd climbed Mount Aspiring 3 or so times as sort of the local mountain to Queenstown, and I've definitely done a bit of stuff in the mountains. Like I have a multi-sport background, and I spent a lot of time pursuing the coast to coast and racing stage races in China. Actually, was a big staple of what I was up to for quite a few years, and yeah, and then sort of as I slowed down in the racing and moved away, my interest was always in the mountains, and yeah, so I sort of progressed into the mountain sports, doing a lot of ski touring. I did a very good avalanche awareness course, and also just started spending more and more time climbing and learning those skills. So I kind of went from multi-sport to rock climbing, and then to sort of trad climbing, placing your own gear, and then started applying those skills to the mountains. And that was kind of the good path to allow me to sort of get into this world. And I must say that doing a really good avalanche course, I did my avalanche stage 5 qualification, which is what a ski patroller would need to get to be in the profession. So I invested heavily in the education, and also started to, I guess I'd say that I applied the same tenacity that I'd given adventure racing and multisport to these mountain sports. And so while I didn't have a huge amount of experience, I had a lot of time on my feet, a lot of endurance from the training over the years, and a recent accumulation of enough experience in the mountains to feel like I could do this trip, especially with someone like Alastair, who I knew would have all of the technical ability.
Yeah, that's right. Because I mean, that's not something that people just go and do. Like climbing Mount Cook alone is a mission, and it's not a given either. Like people die up there.
Yeah.
It's dangerous, isn't it? And for you, I guess, to have Alistair there as a key person to bounce off to make sure that you guys stay safe and actually come home in one piece is super key.
Yeah. So it was amazing for me because, yeah, like as I say, I hadn't climbed Mount Cook, and we ended up actually, doing this big journey through the Alps, climbing all these peaks, and eventually we made our way to Mount Cook, and we climbed that peak near the end of our expedition. And so, a dream of mine and something that I was working towards, climbing Mount Cook was actually done after I'd climbed 22 of the other 3,000-meter peaks en route to Mount Cook.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
and so by that stage, it was also very special because that was a point in our expedition where I had really accumulated a lot of knowledge, and Alastair had been an amazing mentor for me, and it sort of came to be that on that particular day, I was the one who was able to lead us through that climbing up to Mount Cook. So it was quite a symbolic climb for me, where the baton almost was passed a little bit there, and I was able to lead us up that one. So yeah, very special.
Yeah, how good. That's awesome. Just the full immersion into climbing, I guess, isn't it? Over those days that preceded that, for you to feel confident and Alistair to feel confident for you to actually lead that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's the advantage of doing a trip like what we did. Time is a resource that we often don't have much of, and to go and do all of these peaks on separate missions would be a massive undertaking that people do over a lifetime. By committing to doing it in a single continuous push, we did actually eliminate a lot of the the approaches that we would normally have to do if you were to say exit the mountains after every peak. So yeah, we were able to sort of just keep moving through this sort of journey, and yeah, it really was like an alpine Rogaine, you could say, where we had this set number of peaks. They were dotted around mainly in the Aoraki National Park. So 23 peaks, basically around Mount Cook, Aoraki, and then the rest of those were the final peak was Mount Aspiring, which was obviously down by Wanaka there in Mount Aspiring National Park. So 23 peaks close together that we could sort of connect by foot, and then we biked from Mount Cook Village to Wanaka, and then we climbed that last peak from there. So yeah, so by doing that in that style, we were able to make the most of these really short little weather windows because we were already in the mountains ready to go. So a perfect example of that was when we did climb Aoraki Mount Cook. There was definitely a forecast that you wouldn't go into the mountains on that particular day to climb. You would have looked at the forecast and gone, oh, I just don't think it's worth it. It's not likely that we'll have success on that day. But whereas we were right there, we could wake up, we could just go for it, have a crack, and if we felt like it was getting dangerous, we could have just turned around. But we were very lucky just to sneak in and climb that peak just as this nor'wester storm was really starting to roll in. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Because you mentioned like in the hut, there was no one else there. It was just you guys. Like normally that hut at the time of the year that you were climbing, it would have been full of other climbers, but it was just you two. And that day that you
actually on that particular day, there was other climbers in that hut. There was actually there was a guiding group there that had some clients who were doing like a sort of intro to snowcraft up there. But they actually flew out that morning because the weather was turning bad. You know, they were basically like, oh, this is not worth hanging around for the storm. So, but you're right in saying that for the majority of our trip, that we were actually very surprised with how quiet it was in a lot of these backcountry huts. Like, we spent quite a lot of time just as a climbing pair. Like, we didn't see people for 2-3, I think 3 weeks probably would have been the longest, and our whole trip was 31 days. So that's a fair amount of that time.
Yeah. So what planning time? When did you start to get the call, and when did you actually end up lining up to say, right, let's push go? And I'm sure there's been lots of looking at maps and sussing out how can we actually do this. That's exciting, the fun part.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I think it was around May or so when Alastair called me. So just sort of start of winter, and the trip started in mid-November. So there was a bit of time there. Since Alastair had climbed, actually, he'd climbed a few of these peaks, and he'd been in the area much more than me. He had a far better idea of a good route, and he came up with the idea of the particular route that we did. But yeah, once we had just settled on the route, there was a lot of reading guidebooks and sort of trying to get really familiar with where we would actually be climbing. And then there was the logistics of prepping gear and accumulating a few more things. Like mountaineering's one of those sports where, just like any sport really, like multisport's the same, where you're kind of going, maybe I should spend the extra couple $100 and get that really lightweight ice axe, or it's always you're trying to cut grams where you can. And on this mission, we knew that was going to be a fine balance between having lightweight gear, but also gear that was resilient enough to handle this quite intense mission. We also needed it to be very reliable for things like crampons and ice axes were an area where we didn't really compromise much. We were, those are your fixations to the mountain. You want those things to be really good. But yeah, other areas you could definitely look at refining the weight. And then there was the planning of the actual logistics themselves, which was a lot of that was centered around organizing food drops, because we had numerous food drops scattered throughout the national park, and we utilized connections with friends to get most of those food drops in, and we did walk one of them into Empress Hut ourselves in the lead up, and we ended up actually getting one of the food drops flown in as well at a last minute, just because we couldn't get it in there any other way. And we also stashed our bikes as well in a hut in the Mount Cook village, and we both sort of, it's a very funny moment, because we were there, we did a food drop, and then we left our bikes in this hut, and we're just kind of looking at each other laughing, going, this is ridiculous. We've got to climb 3,000 meter peaks to get to these bikes, to then bike to Wanaka to climb the last peak, and the chances of that happening are just so slim that it just felt ridiculous to even be putting our bikes here. And this is like 2 months before we were even, this is our last trip up there, and we're like, oh, it's this is such a long way away. Is this going to even happen? So that was quite funny. But we're also very lucky that my partner Beate was she was our head support crew really. She drove logistics for us and dropped us off at the start, and then she also met us after we got out of the Aoraki National Park, and then she supported us as we biked to Wanaka. So that was also a key part of the mission too.
So clearly your bikes hadn't been stolen; they were still there 2 months later.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So no, they were still there, and yeah, and we managed to do that ride, and it was a tricky part of the equation, because so as you can imagine, as we sort of got through this challenge, there was like this tension that was building. It was like, well, we've done 21 peaks now, and there's bad weather coming. We've got to climb Aoraki and Mount Dixon, and then we've got to get to Wanaka, and like it all felt very up in the air, and right down to the last minute basically. And so by the time we got to the bikes, there was definitely that conversation going on of priorities and what we valued the most, and there was like the conversation of, if we scrap the biking, would that will guarantee that we'd climb all these peaks in a month. That would be cool. But if we committed to the original idea and biked, we'd be like really keeping that expedition feel, and keeping that momentum of the expedition, and doing what we set out to do, but risking a bit more chance of failure, And
So the job was to do it within a month, right? That was the goal. Like we needed to do it in a month.
we had a set amount of time off work. We just allocated. Alastair had to be back. So Alastair had commitments at the start, and I had to be back at the end. And so we were kind of confined by this window, and we had about 35 days, I think it was, allocated. But by the time we got to this sort of stage, we're going, well, a month is pretty cool. Like that would be a good objective to try and get it done in the month. And so we're kind of looking at the days left, and we're looking at how many peaks to go, and we're sort of doing the math and going, oh man, it's possible, but it's like so dubious. And then we're looking at the weather as well, and like when we made our way out of Mount Cook National Park, our last day there was pretty awesome, really. We started in Plateau Hut, which is right up in the snow, nestled up against Mount Cook there, and we climbed Mount Dixon in the morning, our last 3,000 meter peak in the Aoraki National Park. We then exited all the way out to Mount Cook Village, and then we biked all the way to Twizel, and that was just that one day. We'd been on the go for like in a continuous push. By that stage, we're about 7 days on the trot. Because we were dancing between weather windows on this expedition, and so when the weather was good enough to move, we kind of had to go for it, and because there was a lot of days when we couldn't go anywhere, and we were hut bound. So that was how the rest sort of worked. It wasn't when you necessarily wanted it. It was when it came, So you get to a hut and the storm would come, and you'd be like, okay, we're here for 3 or 4 days, maybe, at the longest. But normally we were lucky on this trip that we basically had 3 or so major storms, and we were in great huts for those, and they only lasted the better part of 2 to 3 days, and they came with very minimal snow, which was really lucky for us, because if you had a massive amount of snow, that means just a few more days of waiting out to let conditions settle. Avalanche risk is obviously going to be up after a big storm, whereas if it just comes as rain, it's a lot better. Things freeze up quickly again, and you can travel much quicker. So
that was my next question: weather and snow conditions, and also the time of the year that you're doing it. So November is the climbing season nowadays. How does that relate to?
Well, it's sort of getting earlier and earlier. Like everyone's sort of aware of the fact that the glaciers are melting and receding, generally speaking, and so you used to be able to climb a lot of these peaks much later in the season, but the limiting factor. So you're trying to balance these two things. You want 3 things really. There's the snow conditions. So you want good stable snow conditions. You want spring or even summer snow where you don't have really deep snow. You have more stable snow and it's more predictable. And you also are trying to balance that with the weather. So you want to go later in the season for better weather. Generally, January and those sort of times have the best weather. So you're sort of thinking about that as well. But you're also thinking about the crevasses, and there becomes a point in time where some of these peaks just become isolated because they're actually cut off. You can't access them because the glacier opens up so much that the travel becomes too difficult, and you can't really get through. So yeah, we settled on starting in mid-November to mid-December as a sort of compromise between, yeah, like we thought that time would give us the good enough weather, but also there'd still be enough snow around to allow us to access everything. And we're in that nice period where, you know, it's sort of late spring and things are generally pretty good to move around on.
Yeah. And obviously required a bit of luck for what that season brings, because it's always different. Who knows what you're turning up
Yeah.
against.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Was there a climb that like a particular peak that you climbed that was the most challenging, maybe due to weather, due to conditions, but maybe also fatigue, like you talked about that, like when we're just on the go, we had to go. Whereas
Yeah.
at the other mountains, peaks, you've had 3 or 4 days off.
That's right. Yeah. No, there's definitely, so there was a section in this journey that was definitely the crux. It was the most challenging section. It involved ticking off numerous peaks on a 2-day push over the divide. So we went from the Hooker Valley and we went along a ridge. Well, we climbed up to Mount Hicks, and then we followed this ridge line, which is like very challenging, very narrow. You know, you're climbing above a lot of exposure, and it's tricky travel. And along that ridge, you're ticking off numerous peaks. There's like 7 or so peaks along that one section that are above 3,000 meters, and we sort of did that over a couple of days. And so those days were big. It was like a 20-hour day and a 16-hour day back to back.
Wow.
And we camped in like a schrund, which is kind of like a bit of a crevasse. And we camped, so we camped midway on our journey in this little crevasse sort of cave in our tent. And yeah, 2 massive days, and really facing a lot of exposure, you know, to just a lot of height and the fear of, you know, you have to be moving carefully, and you don't want to fall because you can't really in that terrain. So we did those 2 big days, and then we had a little bit of rest, but then pretty quickly after that we ended up climbing a peak called Torres Peak. And Torres is a peak that's lesser known, but it's definitely very challenging, and yeah, there's some pretty gnarly climbing on that peak. But we chose a route that wasn't particularly challenging, but you know, it came at a time where we'd exhausted a lot of our mental energy. I always sort of think it's like you have sort of a mental resource, and you can you know, on a weekend mission, you're sort of stocked up on stoke. I'd say, you know, you can go into the hills, or you can go. Same with multisport as well. You know, you can go charge around, do some big mission, and you're all G'd up for it. And especially when it comes to the technical side of things, and the exposure to like fear, I guess is a good way to describe it. You know, you're engaged and you're focused because you know there's a big consequence to what you're doing. That tires you out, you know, on a mental level as well as the physical. So yeah, Torres was a challenge because we're just being worked physically and mentally, and we're sort of, yeah, it's just that thing where we knew we had to just keep going and tick these peaks off when we had the weather. And yeah, that was definitely a challenging peak, that one.
Did you ever doubt, like, did you ever have that wobbly moment? Did you ever look down, or like, how do you manage that ability to stay in the moment rather than sort of thinking about it too much? Because I'm sure you can't think about it because the consequences are, well, you're either on or off, you're here or you're not, sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I guess it's like it's like the challenge itself of doing this expedition. The whole goal was too lofty. It was ridiculous. You know, like we didn't think we could do it. Like it was just this crazy thing. We're like, that would be amazing to do. But even if we did 2 of the peaks and went home going, oh well, we did 2 of them, that was cool. You know, it'd still be a really cool mission. So we went into it with that mentality of like, let's just tick it off one by one. You know, we're going to work really hard. Alastair also has a multi-sport background. You know, he's done a fair amount of racing, and he's also done a lot of time in the hills. And we were both really motivated for this mission. So we were going to give it our best, but we didn't ever think much ahead. You know, it was like, what are we doing in the next? You know, what are we doing tomorrow, basically? And are we going to get up that peak, and where are we going from there? And then that can be translated on many scales. So you're going, you know, what are we doing the next few hours? And then it's, what am I doing right now? You know, can I get from here to there? It's just over there. Can I get up there? Cool. Once I'm up there, okay, along the ridge we go, or you keep climbing up or whatever. And you're not really looking down too much. You're focused on what you're doing. You're focused on being methodical. And And there's definitely times in that trip where time became very irrelevant because you just had to go at the pace that was safe, and that might be very, very slow at times. And so especially things like when you're sidling along a steep icy slope, you might be just one tool, the other tool, kicking your foot, one tool, the other tool, kicking your foot. You're just doing that for 2-3 hours to get out to a peak that you're sort of traversing out to. So that's where Alastair's sort of experience really came into play. And he literally said he sort of said, "Hey man, like we just take our time now. We just move as we can. That was cool. So yeah, we really broke it down and we just took it section by section.
Yeah, nice. So little goals and just being patient is a big thing you're talking about, isn't it? Like not looking too far ahead, just being now, see what we can
that's
do.
right. Yeah. Just ticking away at it,
Yep.
and that one step forward. Just keep moving, and not really overthinking it. I think is probably the key. Because if you really broke it down, I mean, like Alastair actually went and climbed Torres Peak. He did an amazing new route with a different climbing partner on Torres Peak only a few months before our expedition, and he looked over at this ridgeline that we were going to traverse, the one that has the bulk of these peaks, and he just looked over and went, "Oh, that's too much, man! Like that looks crazy, And so he was, he sort of came back from his successful mission, being like, "Oh, Hamish, I don't know, man. Like it just looks so wild, And so so it was definitely just about breaking into smaller, manageable chunks.
Yeah, nice. How did you manage your food and nutrition? Obviously, you had some food drops amongst on the way, but you're expending a whole bunch of energy. Like you're just out there for 20 hours, 16 hours, just on the go continuously. Like not at a super high end level, but you're still, the energy expenditure must have been massive. How did you go in terms of actually just keeping yourself rolling and keeping yourself fueled for that?
Yeah, so it's definitely different to so a lot of the racing I've done in the past, like coast to coast or these stage races and China races and things, very intense, a bit shorter and things. But God Zone's a more similar style of race to what we were doing. And so I definitely took some tips from my experience there. And I knew we'd need a lot of proper food. We had a lot of radix food on this trip. And so that was really key. But we added a lot of coconut oil to all of our meals. And we had even our wraps, we actually started just deep frying them in all the coconut oil that we had. We'd do this crazy setup in the huts because we didn't have a frying pan, obviously, but in some of these huts there are utensils, and so we'd set up our jet boil and sort of, you can't put a pan straight on a jet boil because it's like a gas cooker, but we'd stack up a few things in the hut to build this sort of tower to sit our frying pan on, and then we'd fill it up with oil and we'd just deep fry these wraps. And by the time you're 20 days in or whatever, you're just craving that fat. You need it. And so that was a good way to get the calories. Coconut oil was great.
Yeah, just feed me. Yeah. What about when you're out and about? Are you eating bars, or what are you sort of trying to eat when you're out? Because obviously that's challenging too.
Yeah, so we had bars. Definitely had an assortment of bars. But again, we would actually deep fry our wraps in the morning with salami, cheese. Things that would last being stashed in our food drops. And so we could have that coconut oil soaked wrap with our fatty and protein based food sort of in there, and that was really, really good. You actually started getting to the point where sugar was reasonably undesirable, and fat was the thing that you just wanted all the time. So chocolate bars and bars, but the sort of the wraps were the thing that was actually probably the best.
Nice. When did you feel that this whole mission, this enchainment sort of mission of linking all this together, when did you feel that you were actually going to achieve it? Was it when you got back to Mount Cook? Was it actually when you're at the top of Mount Aspiring? Where are you at?
It's a funny one to think of because so the weather's just so unpredictable, and we had that time window, and we had this constriction at the end where it basically looked like we basically had to bike fairly quickly from Mount Cook National Park to Aspiring to squeeze Aspiring in before the next storm. And I'm talking like, we yeah, like we biked from Wanaka and just biked out to the start of the track to Mount Aspiring, and then just kept walking until we got to the top, and then we descended down to the hut at Colin Todd, which is still fairly remote, and just sort of crashed and fell asleep. And the next morning we woke up and it was just like, raining and clagged and horrible and windy, and even then, after we'd been successful in climbing all of the peaks, we still were like, wow, the conditions are quite rough today. Like, we have to get out, and like, that's still fairly tricky, and especially in the wet conditions. So it really wasn't until I would say once we made it out of technical terrain, like out of terrain that felt like it could be dangerous, then we were like, okay, we've done it. We can relax now. This is it. We can we know we can walk 3 hours. We can walk 3 hours to finish. Like, it's going to happen. So right to the last minute, like,
because that's the thing. Like, that's the thing with mountaineering, isn't the most accidents happen on the descent, on the downhill, when you're maybe not concentrating as much and you kind of can relax a little bit. So, I mean, your mission was so long that actually even the Aspiring descent and getting down from that hut, it's still dangerous stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. We never let our guard down, and we were quite. I'd say we were very mindful of that, and and we were at the point on this last peak where it felt like full event race mode. Like, we stopped on the bike ride out there in the early hours of the morning. I think we had a midnight start that night again. Another midnight start. We did a lot of those on the trip where you kind of like, which day is it? Oh yeah, okay, sweet. And then we had to stop along the way, and I just remember like, where are you, Alastair? And he's like, oh, sorry, man, I just fell asleep, just in the bushes, like while I was like changing my jacket or something on the bike, and we're sort of walking zombies up this last peak, and we're going to climb Mount Aspiring. It's not like, it's not like a casual walk in the park kind of thing. It's not like the hardest peak, but it's also still a pretty solid undertaking. So we're in this sort of beat up condition where we're just like a bit munted, really.
You got to still respect it right to the end. It's crazy.
Sure.
Did you lock your bikes up, or did you just throw them in the bushes?
Oh, we were lucky that we had the support again. So a couple of friends had driven out. So my girlfriend and one of our friends as well had driven out to sort of, they were following us on the bike ride, sort of supporting us. And then when we got to the end at the car park there, that like they gave us some food and they like were sort of cheering us on a bit, and they actually shared a little bit of the journey out with us as well. They sort of walked out a bit with us to sort of see us off on that last peak too. So that having that support was really good at that stage. Definitely when you're sort of that sort of tired, it was great.
And you're probably sick of one another by that stage as well, are you? Just to talk to someone else.
Well, it was quite nice to have some fresh energy, that's for sure, because we were both pretty tired. But I would say that if anything, it was perhaps actually hard for the other two to connect with Alastair and I, because we were so on the same wavelength and in the same little world. Like, we were on this expedition world, and we'd been through all this stuff, and we were quite dialed in and connected by that stage, and it was quite a neat experience to be that in tune with someone and that environment as well. Like, the mountains are quite a gnarly place to be, but we'd spent like 30 days, by that stage in the mountains, and they almost felt like home. It's like it felt quite familiar, and you felt like you kind of understood the conditions at that time because we'd sort of been in them for so long that it was quite a nice experience.
You're not looking at weather forecasts or anything, you're just looking at clouds and just getting a feel for what's going on, is that right? Or are you getting weather forecasts?
So in all of the alpine huts there's a radio, and that radio will deliver a forecast. So we were listening to that, and then also we had some friends on the InReach, and we were messaging out and getting forecasts from them as well. But this is fairly limited information still, lucky to have some friends in sort of people who paraglide and things, and they're very in tune with the weather, and so we would just sort of trust to a fair amount what they say, that good next 2 days, looking average after that. Like you're like, okay, let's go for it for 2 days. You don't really know what that means, but like we sort of would trust that they'd sort of figured out that, oh yeah, if they're saying it's good, it must be right.
Yeah, nice.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was a fair amount of also watching the weather. I actually paraglide myself as well, and so I've done a bit of study of the weather, and I was trying my best to sort of interpret what was going on. It was definitely helpful to have a bit of sort of just keeping an eye out on what sort of clouds were forming and what the wind was doing up high and things, and just sort of that gave us a bit of a warning as well. So
extra on top of that, to be in tune to that.
Yeah.
What was the view like at the top of Mount Aspiring? Could you see the other mountains that you'd climbed?
So Mount Aspiring was a special day because we left Wanaka in like cloud inversion. It was raining, like it was that sort of clagged in that it was drizzling gently, and we're heading up the peak there, getting fairly high up it, and we're still in the cloud, and it's still sort of raining on us. But eventually we gained a height that was above the inversion cloud, and we came out into this blue sky with these beautiful billowing high clouds, and it was actually I've climbed Aspiring I think now 5 times, and that was the most beautiful time that I've ever been up there. It was just amazing blue sky, amazing clouds, and we were at this time of the year, like we summited at about 8 p.m. and that was just before the sun was setting. So so it was unreal. It was really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And could you see the other mountains from there? Can you
we could see Mount Cook, and it was it was definitely like being in a state of sort of jet lag or something, where we were kind of like, wow, like we came from over there by bike. We were standing, I can see Mount Cook, and we were standing on top of that, like what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago? Like it was it was all very confusing, and it was pretty unreal, like to have done it all on our own steam. So very, very special moment. But also, like I said before, we didn't feel like we were done. It's 8 p.m. We're on the top of a 3,000-meter mountain, and we've got to get down. We've got to get out the next day when we know the storm's coming. So we were stoked for sure, but we also were like, oh, we're still got to get the job done. Like we're not done yet. Let's keep going. But yeah, we sort of tried to take this little like selfie video at the top to, like, I don't know, capture the moment. But we're kind of like, yeah, we did it. I think, like, it's like, it's just sort of unreal, Yeah.
That's right. And as you say, like you didn't ever sort of write a speech at the start of it because you just never thought that it would ever actually be able to be done. Just laughing at yourselves when you put your bikes in the hut for a start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the whole thing just like it felt like everything had just worked out. There's just so many things that could have gone wrong on such a trip. You could break a crampon or something, have a gear malfunction that might set you back a couple of days, like if you had to get something delivered, helicoptered in, or I don't know, or you could have an injury, or you could have bad weather for 10 days, which just, sort of, blocks out a whole period. But we were just really lucky with the way the storms worked. They arrived when we needed rest, like we could have those 2 or 3 days and then recharge a bit and then go again for another 5 or 7 days or whatever it would be. And then we get to the huts eventually and be like, oh, I'm so glad the bad weather's coming again. Oh my gosh, like I need it. I need these storm days. I'm tired, So that's like stuff. We're just lucky there, really. Yeah.
Got a couple of questions that have come through that people asked as we've been talking. First one, as an endurance athlete, how was the altitude sort of up that high? Because altitude is a thing at those peaks at 3,000 meters plus. How did that compare? Like, did it affect you? How did it compare to, say, like a hard run that you would do? How much were you huffing and puffing as you were climbing these?
So I like we were lucky in the way that the way we'd planned our trip, we did one big 3,000 meter peak, Mount Sefton, where we had to climb basically from sea level. We approached from the west coast, we climbed this peak, and then we descended again back down to pretty close to sea level before then continuing on our journey. And so it almost felt like we were training as we went, and getting exposed to the height and just the physicality of it and the altitude and all of that. But then we had this sort of chance to come down again, a little bit of recovery, and then we kind of climbed up again. And then eventually we ended up we spent about 23 or 4 days continuously on the snow, above about almost above 1,800 meters or so,
Yeah.
So by that stage we'd been adapting, and it became not very noticeable, to be honest. I never really thought I'm out of breath because of the altitude. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you just get used to it, it's your new normal, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so I think Sefton probably physically was one of the harder peaks, because it was such a big sort of push from the valley. But after that we were up and into it and adapting on the go, really. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And just as we threw up on the bottom of the screen there from Peter Radcliffe, great commentary, Hamish, every single phrase. Biggest thanks from Pedro. So how good is that?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, nice work. So I do need to, it's a tough one to even ask, and I shouldn't, but have you got another mission plan? What's in the pipeline for you? Because like do you just line up another big adventure, or what's going on? How do you I mean, you can't top this. It's very easily anyway.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a game you want to play, like it's in the mountains and it's a tricky environment, and
yeah.
I think like both Alastair and I came away from this trip going, okay, let's just like sit on this for a bit and just think about it and sort of enjoy it, and not necessarily just look to that next thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's always going to be the next thing, but you just got to be mindful of I think like chasing these big missions, and just as long as I don't know, you just have to think about it a little bit, and just be mindful of why you're doing it, and all of that. But at the same time, doing something like this, it just makes you so alive, and it's such an amazing experience. It's something I'm so stoked to have been a part of, and I think just pushing yourself hard and seeing what you can do is pretty awesome. It's something that I think provides a lot of joy, and I would encourage everyone to pursue some goal. There's a famous quote, I forget who it's by, but it goes something like, ask not what you can do for the world, ask what makes you come alive, because the world needs more people who have come alive.
Yeah,
And
cool.
that's quite a cool one to think, because I think sometimes it's tricky to balance the you want to be a balanced person. You don't just want to chase a single thing single-mindedly, and you can feel a bit sort of selfish sometimes as an athlete, or as someone pursuing a personal lofty goal. But I think that if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be inspired, and it's like it's a really cool thing to see people going hard and doing something big. I think it's really great, and that's in all sports. So I think there's definitely more to come. I'm excited for some future missions, but it's one of those things you never really I don't know. There's so many things again with the mountain missions that you sort of hold them close to your chest until they actually happen. Really.
Yeah, that's right. And just from a very simple perspective, is spending 31 days in the mountains with a friend, with no technology, not really seeing many other people. It's just simple and back to basics, isn't it? I mean, it is a very simple level. That's pretty awesome in itself.
Oh, it was so good, and the time that we did it, COVID vaccines were invented. Vaccine passes, I should say. The vaccine had happened. We'd all done all that, but we were in the when we came out of the Mount Cook National Park, we were pretty quickly informed, like, guys, if you want a pie, you're going to have to get this vaccine pass. And we're like, oh no, how do you get that? Like, we want to get a pie. Like, we want to go to the pub or something and have a meal on the way as we bike past.
Yeah.
And so it was a crazy time, really. Quite refreshing to be away from technology and just living this simple life where, that's definitely a big part of the joy was having a very simple goal and just living that every day. It's really good.
Yeah, so good, so good. Having to stand outside asking someone else to buy you a pie because you couldn't get in the shop.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Lucky it was easy to get your hands on that vaccine pass once you had the internet. It was all good.
Yeah, good job. Hey, Hamish, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your insights. I think there's going to be a lot of people that really enjoy listening to this back again, and really fantastic insights that you've made into this fantastic adventure and mission that you've completed. So on behalf of the whole Team CP and the wider community, I really, thanks for joining us, and all the best for the next adventure. Look forward to following you.
No, thanks for having me, Richard. I appreciate it. Yeah, cheers.
Good job. Okay, take care. Catch up soon.
You. See ya.
See ya. Matt.
Crikey.
Is that
Oh,
fire?
yeah. I mean, it's pretty inspiring. I guess the thing that I was surprised by, or probably the thing that you try to understand, is that at one point there he said that they're in the mountains for so long that you kind of can't become at one with the mountains. And whilst that's all very cool, you kind of wonder how the transition is actually back to like day-to-day life, back in a house and a car and all these other sorts of things that, it'd be really weird, I think.
And a washing machine. How was that first shower? I didn't ask him that. We had a big fridge out the door, but impressive, eh? No, very good.
Very cool.
Nice work. Hey, let's box on. We're gonna. Corinne's been waiting in the wings. Is she about? Corinne has done a fantastic job of her event that she just did on the weekend. It was the Corinne, over to you.
Noosa Enduro.
Yeah, nice. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Corinne. So you're based in Aussie. You connect with us via our Zwift sessions. You enjoy riding your bike. You've got a young family. There's lots going on. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do and enjoy doing from a day-to-day perspective.
So I'm a single mum with 2 little kids, and I am studying at university, and my bachelor degree was crazy enough to go back as a mature age student.
Okay, it's a bit on.
Yeah, and doing outdoor leading as well.
Cool. Fantastic. So tell us more about that Noosa 100k mountain bike ride. That's not something you can just kind of turn up to. You've got to do a little bit of training, because otherwise that's going to suck.
Yeah. So this was kind of my primer for the Walker 100 at the end of the year. Yep. So I went in to Noosa with it just being kind of putting all the training together that we've been doing over, I don't know, like 2 years have we been training on Zwift together for?
It feels like it, yeah. Haven't managed to meet you yet, but we'll hopefully do that in a couple of months' time.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So again, so it was 100 Ks. It was 3,000 plus meters of climbing. How did you approach that? Because that's a big day out. Yeah.
So I just went into it with a really positive attitude of just put training into practice. Try and work out the nutrition, because last year I didn't get nutrition so right, and I cramped really badly on one of the big climbs.
Okay, that's ugly.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly. So just get nutrition right, get it sorted, work out how much I need to fuel myself properly for it, just to last.
Yes.
And it sounds so minor, but it's such a huge part to play in an endurance race when you're going and there's no water and there's no food being dropped to you or anything out there. So.
And in terms of this event, like, how technical was it from a mountain bike perspective? And obviously you must have some pretty long, grovelly climbs to stack in 3,000 meters of climbing into that.
Yeah. So some of it's a lot of, like, you get fire road single track. There's some bitumen climbs that turn into single track fire road, and then they just don't seem to ever end. It just kept going on. They were really long roads. So I kind of had the fem rides going through my head of these white roads, just stay on it, hold on. And it's been really wet here. So that threw a really big challenge. Last year it was dry, and this year was super muddy. And we were you just kind of point and shoot and hope you stayed on your bike.
Yeah, good job. You've done it previously, so and obviously you've done a bunch of training. How did it go this time compared to last time? Obviously, because it is going to be tougher because conditions are slower.
Yeah, that was kind of why I took time out of it for myself, but I only ended up 7 minutes difference.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I was really stoked with it being so marginal, the difference, knowing that the conditions were really slow comparatively. And I hadn't been getting out to do long rides in the bush either. I've done long rides on the trainer. So
yes. Yeah, that's fantastic. And highlight of the event.
Highlights were probably some of the descents because, as I said, I haven't had an opportunity to get out and really work on my my skills on the mountain bike. I've done a little bit, but not enough. So I'd send guys down the hill before me, and I would just pretty much go, if you're going and making it at this speed, so am I. And anyone that knows me, I live life on the edge at high speed a lot of the time. So, I was just going for it. And
how good.
Yeah, having a blast. So the descents were definitely a highlight for me to achieve them and ride them pretty well.
Cool. Were there any, we have to talk lowlights because that's part of the sort of what makes the finishing so rewarding, doesn't it? Were there any sort of really grovelly moments, I just don't want to be here? And if so, how did you get through those?
There were, but I think I just ate. So I said, I've taken a picnic, and anytime I hit a slightly low moment, I would just eat something. And whether it worked or not, I didn't care. Just throw the food in and keep riding.
Nice.
Yeah, so at any low moment, I think just adds perspective to what you need to improve for training next time. So,
Nice. Yeah, cool. Good stuff. So what's next for you? So you got Waka 100 coming up, and have you got any other adventures sort of planned in the pipeline?
No, I've actually got a lot of my outdoor ed work. And there's some pretty big days in the field. So I've got 12-day immersions to do where I'm taking groups of 20-odd kids out on big adventures on their mountain bikes. So, racing kind of is on the backside of that. So, Walker is probably the big goal this year, and maybe throw myself in for some proper downhill enduros, not this enduro over 100 Ks.
Yes, actually, enduro, riding your bike downhill fast and getting most of that work, Corinne. That's so good. Fantastic. Really appreciate your insights. We'll definitely have to come across to Noosa to do this at some point. Sounds like a fantastic thing to do at this time of year when it's dark and cold and miserable, to come and ride at your place.
Yeah, it's great. It was some really nice nice days. We did climb up one of the climbs that I was thinking, this is typical New Zealand weather. It's cold, windy, blowing me sideways. I'm riding sideways along a hill. So riding through a cow paddock somewhere I didn't really know. But definitely worth the adventure because it's a beautiful place and the community's great here. So.
Yeah, good. Sounds just like right up his alley. Like just put your rain jacket on and get amongst it.
Yeah, bring it on. I say you got to just put it out there and put the date in the calendar, pay the entry fee, and then you commit it, aren't you, kind of thing. But of course, you'll be coming to New Zealand to do Waka in late October, I think it is. Weather will be perfect. There'll be no wind. It'll be probably 23 degrees at 6 o'clock in the morning. Absolutely nothing to worry about, and you'll have a blast.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I am thinking maybe I'll need thermals because my idea of cold is not yours. Like my cold is 14 degrees. So getting below that, I'm in trouble.
You just go fast. Just pedal faster.
Nice work, Corinne. You take care. Thanks for joining us, and all the best for the next adventure. And look forward to cheering you on sometime soon on the next ride.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you so much for all the Zwift sessions. They've been fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's good. And try and let me
don't
win the
encourage
next
them.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care. Thanks.
See you later.
See ya. Good job, Matt. It's just another good story of a CP athlete giving it heaps and balancing life. A couple of young kids, lots going on there, and enjoying riding the bike, but just making it work, which is pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, most definitely. And if she's had sounds like she had a reasonably long lead up to things, and sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you need to either build your skill set or build your performance, or as you say, life things you have to plan events around life. And some of these big events only happen once a year, so it's it's really cool to see people. I guess that's the thing that we enjoy working with athletes too, isn't it? That they have these kind of what they perceive as big, hairy, audacious goals, and they just chip away and chip away and chip away, and the day comes along and they have a really good time. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, absolutely. That's right. It is winter at the moment. I've been working with a lot of athletes across the board, all different levels, sort of people sort of out there thrashing it versus others that are just kind of trying to get started and figuring out their routine. It's been really interesting, actually, like just to share sort of some of my kind of key thoughts that I've been seem to be talking about as sort of key themes across the board. I think that one thing that it always comes back to in regards to training and what Corinne is doing really well is just that consistency piece, doing a little bit of something kind of most days. And if you're doing that during winter when it's the hardest, then it really sets you up for the future, the summer, the spring, etc. And a bit of that strength training, a bit of that stuff you don't necessarily like to do, but just keep moving. It doesn't have to be long and much. That's really a key focus that we've been working on a lot with people.
Especially when those days like now, we kind of start getting towards spring and the days start getting a bit lighter and a bit warmer, and you just kind of think, oh man, I should have done a bit more work over winter, eh? So
that's right.
Just that consistency thing, just get out and suck it up and enjoy it when the summer comes. And
the other sort of 2 points I've made here just to share is number one is be realistic. Actually, life happens. Things are going on. We're all busy, but be realistic and don't sort of aim for too much. And I think it's important sometimes just to have a low sort of bottom line, like that 15-minute rule that we often talk about, or that 7-minute abs. Like just be realistic to just do that for a start, and then we can build upon that. But I think the other key point is to train with a smile on your face. Like it should be fun. Like if you're doing that and you're doing things because you enjoy it, you'll want to do it more, and it's easier to get into a rhythm. And if you're training with your smile on your face, things are good. Keep it social, keep it fun. Make sure there's bits you enjoy rather than sort of feeling like you have to drag yourself out of bed at 5 a.m. in the morning and it's all just a bit tough.
And a grimace is just a different type of smile, eh?
It is, it is totally fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Hey, it's been a fantastic show tonight. There's a big thank you to True Fleece Merino for helping us with this show. It's been awesome to have some comments of people getting involved. So make sure that you give us some feedback and enjoy. I hope you enjoyed listening to Hamish. Just to summarize, Matt, what were your key takeaways?
I'm looking forward to deep fried burritos or deep fried wraps. I haven't come across those before, but I probably need to do, if the prerequisite is that you're going to do 25 days in the mountains, probably not going to be on the menu for a wee while. But
I was going to say, there's a bit to get there.
The cool thing is, we come across a lot of people in Team CP and it's really just cool that people just have these big goals that, as crazy as they might be, the way Hamish talked about, dropping their bikes in a hut 2 months before they were going to get there. And you just think how this could all possibly go wrong, but what the heck, let's give it a crack and see what happens. So just dig in and stay committed and roll with it when it comes along. I guess we again deal with a lot of endurance athletes and those sorts of things. And, we've all been there before. We've had good days and bad days, but it's just how you pick yourself up and carry on, isn't it? And just keep moving. So just for me, I think the takeout is just more inspirational stories just to keep you going. When you're in those kind of bad places, and you just think about the people that have been in much worse. Okay, it's bad for me, but holy heck, there's some other people, really been up against it. So just get out there and get into it.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that he talked about just breaking it down into its small bits. Yes, you've got a plan and where you're going, and then bring it back to that shorter plan. But actually, it's just about staying in the moment and keeping it really simple and focusing on those things that you can control right now, which means you allow yourself to then have a look at the next piece. But you can't look at that next piece until you get this bit done. And that's exactly the same across the board when we break it down into an endurance event. Just focus on the now, and then the next bit will come when you carry on. So yeah, pretty awesome. Nice work. Well, you look after yourself, Matt. Keep yourself warm in your True Peace Merino, and looking forward to getting out and about on the mountain bike sometime soon.
Most definitely. Yep. Thank you, Rich. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you the next one.
Cool. Cheers. Thanks, heaps.
Over and out.